Chapter 1 Ash Beneath Twin Suns. The desert does not forget. It holds the bones of the nameless and the cries of the lost, burying them beneath layers of time. Beneath its twin suns, Tatooine burns without mercy. Its light blinds, its heat consumes, its silence suffocates. And yet, in this wasteland of dust and blood, the Force breathes. A child is born where no prophecy should take root. His name is Anakin. He knows nothing of empires or destiny. Only the clink of chains when he moves, the weight of labor on a body too young to bear it, the taste of thirst that never fades. His hands fix the broken things brought to him, machines, engines, scraps of forgotten ships. But no one notices that he feels them before he sees them, that the metal sings to him, that he hears the hum of what others call silence. The slaves of Tatooine are numbers to their masters, shadows in the sun. Yet the Force does not measure. As men do, it coils in him like a serpent in deep water, patient, unseen. In the dust markets, a traveler arrives. A Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn. His presence is like a ripple through stagnant air. The boy watches him without knowing why, feeling a pull he cannot name. The Jedi speaks of freedom without offering it, speaks of destiny without explaining it. And yet, when Qui-Gon looks into his eyes, there is recognition, as though he has seen the boy before. In some ancient dream, the desert wind howls through the alleys that night. Qui-Gon tests the boy in small ways with words, with reflexes, with chants. He sees what the Council will fear. No child should carry this much power, this much certainty, and yet remain so unaware of it. Anakin dreams that night. In his dream, the twin suns are black, the sand is red, and something vast stirs beneath the dunes. It whispers his name by day. Qui-Gon bargains with the slave master. Words fail, and so he turns to chants, a padres, deadly and unrelenting. If the boy wins, he will be freed. Anakin's hands grip the controls of the pod racer as though they were part of him. The engines scream, the crowd roars, the dust rises. He does not race against men, he races against the chains themselves. And when it is done, the chains break. But freedom is not whole. His mother remains, bound to the sands. She stands in the doorway, the light burning her silhouette into his memory. Her smile is brave, her eyes are not. She tells him to go, to follow the Jedi, to seek a life the desert cannot give. He promises to return. The promise will rot in his heart. The ship lifts from Tatooine. And for the first time, the boy sees the stars not as pinpricks above the desert, but as oceans stretching forever. He does not know that they will drown him. Coruscant rises from the void like a city built for gods. Its spires pierce the clouds, its lights outshine the stars. But the Jedi Temple is older than the city around it. Its stones carry the weight of centuries, and the Council that waits within measures more than skill. They measure the soul. They speak of the code, of discipline, of release. They speak of fear, and they see it in him. Fear for his mother, fear of loss. Fear, they say, is the path to the dark side. Qui-Gon argues, defies, insists that the boy is the chosen one, the one foretold to bring balance to the Force. The Council hesitates, but the Force moves like a tide no one commands. Events are set in motion. Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes his master. The boy bows, though the gesture is heavy. Somewhere deep within him, the desert still breathes. On the landing platform, before they depart, the wind catches his hair. For a moment he swears he smells the sand again and hears his mother's voice. He turns, but there is only the city. The memory follows him into the ship. It will follow him all his life. In the nights that come, the boy walks the halls of the temple in silence. The walls hum with the presence of the Force, but it is not the same as it was in the desert. Here it is shaped, controlled, bound by ritual. He learns the forms of the lightsaber, the meditations, the words of the code. He speaks them aloud, but they taste like someone else's truth. He dreams again of the black suns. This time there is no desert, only endless darkness, and in the center, a figure of burning metal watching him. It does not speak, it only waits. The Force is not a river, not a light, not a wind. It is a vast ocean of thought and hunger, and Anakin Skywalker is already drifting toward its deepest current. The sands of Tatooine are far behind, but the desert has never truly let him go. The twin suns set in his memory, but their heat remains hidden in his blood. The galaxy does not yet know his name, but the Force does. And in the deep places of its will, it has already chosen what it will make of him. Chapter 2. The chains of the Temple Coruscant was not the desert. Its air was heavy. Its sky was crowded with ships that moved like insects in the light. But for Anakin, the temple was the truest difference. It did not burn like Tatooine. It watched the Jedi, said the temple was a sanctuary. To Anakin, it was a cage carved from stone and silence. The walls hummed with the Force, but not like the raw, wild hum he felt in the desert. Here it was measured, disciplined, bound to rules older than the city itself. His master, Obi-Wan, was steady, measured words, controlled movements, everything a Jedi was meant to be. But Anakin felt the weight of his gaze, as though Obi was guarding more than teaching, as though his role was to contain something rather than guide it. The days fell into ritual. Meditation at dawn, lightsaber drills, lessons in the code. Anakin learned quickly, too quickly for some. He felt the movements before he was taught them, as though someone had whispered them in his dreams. Yet every success drew the same warning. Control yourself. Do not act from emotion. He did not understand. The Force felt alive when it was tied to what he felt. When he reached for it with joy, it answered. When he touched it in anger, it roared. But the Jedi taught him to reach for it as if it were a still pond, untouched, unshaken. At night, the temple's halls grew cold. Shadows stretched across the stone. Sometimes he thought he saw shapes moving at the edge of his vision, not living things, but impressions left behind by those who had walked these halls centuries before. The temple was not empty at night. In the council chamber, he was tested again and again. They asked of his dreams. He spoke of his mother, and the air shifted. Masters exchanged glances. They told him to release his attachment. He did not answer. In secret, he practiced without permission, moving faster, striking harder, pushing his connection to the Force until it strained his body. It thrilled him, it frightened him. He began to notice the unspoken things, the tension in the voices of the Masters when they spoke of the war brewing in the Outer Rim, the way Obi-Wan's tone shifted when the name Palpatine was mentioned, the sense that beneath their calm words, the Jedi feared something. The temple archives became a refuge, endless shelves of holocrons and ancient texts, each speaking of the Force in 100 ways. Some called it light, some called it balance, but others, hidden deeper in the records, spoke of it as hunger, as will, as something that did not care for good or evil. He lingered over these without telling anyone. Once, in the meditation chamber, he felt a presence not his own. It pressed against his thoughts, vast and cold. It did not speak in words, but he understood. It had seen him before. It had been waiting. Obi-Wan noticed his distraction. He told him the mind must be guarded, that not all presences in the Force are benevolent. But Anakin could not shake the feeling that the presence had known him longer than he had been alive. Training grew harder. The forms became faster, more complex. He began sparring with knights far older than him, and more than once his strikes carried too much force. Masters told him to slow, to breathe. He obeyed outwardly, but inside he pushed harder. His dreams changed. The black suns remained, but now he walked toward them. The sand beneath his feet was not Tatooine's. It was darker, heavier, as if soaked in something long spilled. And in the distance, he could see the figure of burning metal again. This time, it moved in the waking world. Months passed. He was no longer the wide-eyed child who had looked at Coruscant in wonder. The city was noise. The temple was stone. His master was duty. Only the Force still felt like a living thing. But the more he reached for it, the more it felt like it was pulling him toward something unseen. One day, during meditation, he thought of his mother's voice. He felt her fear, though she was half a galaxy away. His concentration broke. The masters told him it was nothing, an echo of attachment, but it felt real, too real. The lesson was always the same. Let go, release. But Anakin could not. He had freed himself from chains only to be given new ones. They were not made of metal, they were made of rules. And somewhere in the galaxy, the first shadow of the war began to stretch. The Jedi spoke of preparing, but Anakin felt they were already too late. Something was coming, something vast. The presence he had felt before returned that night. Stronger, closer. It whispered without sound. Not yet. Soon. He woke before dawn, the cold still clinging to him. The city outside the temple windows was waking too, but it felt like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Anakin Skywalker was growing, stronger, but strength alone would not save him. The Force was already choosing his path, and it was not the one the Jedi imagined. Chapter 3. War drums in the Force. The galaxy shifted. Rumors became battles. Skirmishes became war. The Jedi did not retreat to meditation. They took command. Their robes brushed against the mud of battlefields. Their sabers lit the smoke-filled air. They became generals. Anakin was no longer a learner in the temple. The war took him early. His hands, once made for fixing machines, now commanded fleets, and legions, clone troopers followed him without hesitation. He moved with certainty, with instinct, as though each battle was one he had already fought in some other life. Victory followed him, but so did whispers. He was reckless. He disobeyed orders. He placed loyalty above strategy. Some called it bravery, others called it danger. The Force felt different in war. It was not the calm river the Jedi spoke of. It was a storm, and Anakin thrived inside it. Each victory fed him. Each enemy struck down made the storm louder. The Chancellor spoke to him often, always with warmth, always with interest. He called Anakin the most gifted Jedi he had ever known. He told him the Council did not see his true worth. Anakin listened. The Jedi gave him missions. The Chancellor gave him praise. One fed his duty, the other fed his pride. Obi-Wan tried to temper him. "You are too quick to trust your emotions," he warned. But emotions were what kept his men alive. Emotions were what made him fight harder when others would fall back. He began to notice how the council treated him. They gave him command, but not their full trust. They praised his victories, but questioned his methods. They kept him close, yet kept him apart. In the midst of war, his dreams returned. Not the black suns, not the burning metal figure, something else. Flames swallowing cities, Jedi falling, a shadow covering the stars. And always, somewhere in the vision, the sound of someone calling his name. He woke from those dreams with his hands clenched and the taste of ash in his mouth. The war pulled him farther from Coruscant. Outer Rim sieges, space battles over dead worlds, clones fighting in rain, in snow, in heat. And in every place, he saw the same thing, the Republic rotting at the edges, the Senate arguing while soldiers bled. The Chancellor spoke of this too. He said the Jedi were warriors now, but blind to the greater threat. He spoke of enemies hiding in the shadows, of powers the Jedi refused to use. Anakin began to believe him. On a world of rust and wind, Anakin led an assault that broke the Separatist lines in a single night. The clones spoke of it for weeks, how he seemed to know every move the enemy would make, how he walked through fire without fear. But when he returned to Coruscant for a brief rest, the council spoke not of his victory, but of his defiance. He had ignored their strategy to follow his own. It had worked, but they warned him it could not always be so. They spoke as though they feared what he might become. He began to feel it, the divide between what they said and what they felt. The council was cautious, the Chancellor was certain. The war went on. Months bled into years. Anakin's skill deepened. His name spread across the galaxy. Among his enemies, it was spoken with fear. Among his allies, with awe. In the halls of the Jedi Temple, it was spoken with unease. In quiet moments, he thought of his mother. He thought of the promise he had broken. And when he looked at the war, he wondered if anyone could truly be saved in it. Yet he fought. Always forward. Always faster. Each victory was not enough. Each mission left him hungrier for the next. The Force storm grew. The drums of war beat louder, and somewhere beyond, the noise, the same cold presence he had felt in the temple whispered again, "Not yet, soon." Chapter 4. The mothers silenced the war, could not silence his dreams. They returned, sharper, heavier. This time it was her, his mother. He saw her in darkness, her face pale, her breath shallow. Her voice called to him, not in words, but in the ache of the Force. He told no one, not Obi-Wan, not the Council. They would tell him it was attachment. They would tell him to let go. He could not. On leave between campaigns, he disobeyed orders. He took a transport toward Tatooine. The desert welcomed him with heat and dust, but there was no joy in it. He found her in a Tusken camp, bound, bruised, her life slipping away. She smiled when she saw him, as if the years apart had never passed. He held her, he told her he had come, but the desert had already claimed her. She died in his arms, the breath leaving her body like sand through open fingers. Something inside him broke. The world became red. The Force surged through him, not as a current, but as a flood. He drew his saber. The camp fell silent only after every voice was gone. Men, women, even the young, none were spared. The desert took them all. When the rage passed, the bodies lay still. The sand drank the blood. The suns burned on, uncaring. He buried her in the quiet outskirts of Mos Espa, alone. No Jedi prayers, no temple rites, only the wind. He returned to Coruscant without a word. The council asked nothing. Obi-Wan sensed the weight in him, but did not press. In his heart, the act was hidden, but not erased. The Force remembered. That night, the presence came again, closer, warmer. It did not speak of judgment. It did not speak of peace. It only whispered the truth he already knew. This was not the last time his anger would decide who lived and who died. Chapter 5. The seduction of shadows. The war raged on. But the Chancellor's voice became the constant thread in Anakin's life. In the Senate's grand halls, in quiet chambers, in private meetings, Palpatine spoke to him as no Jedi did. He called him the Republic's greatest defender. He said the Council was blind to his true potential. His words were warm, but under them was something sharper. The Jedi spoke of detachment. The Chancellor spoke of loyalty. The Jedi told him to obey the code. The Chancellor told him the code was a cage. In the dim light of Palpatine's office, Anakin felt seen. The Chancellor listened when he spoke of the war's failures, the needless loss of life, the endless caution of the Council. He spoke of a galaxy ruled not by endless debate, but by decisive will. Anakin began to wonder if that will could be his. Obi-Wan sensed the shift. He reminded Anakin that politicians sought power for themselves. But Anakin did not see greed in the Chancellor's words. He saw clarity. The war gave him proof. He had saved thousands by acting without orders. He had ended sieges the Council would have prolonged. The Chancellor praised these acts. The Jedi cautioned against them. The rift widened. One night, in a rare moment of peace, Palpatine told him of a legend. A Sith Lord who had mastered life and death. A power the Jedi feared, but one that could end all loss. Anakin listened, his breath still. The Chancellor's voice lowered. The Jedi would never teach him such things. They would rather see the ones he loved perish than allow him such power. The words took root. Anakin left that night with the story still in his mind. He thought of his mother. He thought of all the soldiers buried on distant worlds. And though he did not yet know it, he thought of Padma. The shadows had begun their work. Chapter 6, the vision of death sleep, became a place of torment. The dreams came without warning, vivid as reality. He saw Pam, her face pale, her breath shallow, her body breaking as she gave birth. He reached for her, but in every vision she slipped away. He woke in darkness, his heart pounding, the images burning into his mind. It was not like the dreams of his mother. This felt closer, inevitable. He tried to bury it. On the front lines, he fought with greater fury, as if victory could push the vision away. But it returned each night, unchanged. At last he told Padma. She tried to comfort him, but he could hear the worry in her voice. She spoke of hope. He heard only the sound of time running out. The Jedi taught that the future was fluid, that visions could deceive. But their words rang hollow. He had seen death before, and it had come true. Palpatine listened differently. He did not dismiss the fear. He spoke again of ancient powers, the ability to prevent death itself, a knowledge the Jedi denied. Anakin's resolve hardened. If such power existed, he would find it. If the Jedi would not give it to him, someone else would. The vision did not fade. It grew stronger, and each time he saw it, the darkness in him whispered the same truth. To save her, nothing could be forbidden. Chapter 7, the shattering of Mace Windu's war reached its fevered peak. Victory on one world meant retreat on another. The separatists scattered, their leaders hunted, but the galaxy was no closer to peace. Anakin returned to Coruscant under a restless sky. Padme's presence brought him moments of stillness, but the visions of her death were heavier now, pressing against him in waking hours. Each smile she gave him felt like a countdown. Palpatine summoned him often. The Chancellor's voice was softer now, almost intimate, as if confiding secrets too dangerous for other ears. One evening, in the dim glow of his office, he spoke without hesitation. He was the one the Jedi sought, the Sith Lord hidden in plain sight. The words should have been a blade. Instead, they were an opening. If the Sith truly possessed the power to save her, then perhaps the enemy was not the enemy. Breath slowed. He said nothing of betrayal, nothing of duty. Only the question, was it true? Could the dark side prevent death? Palpatine's answer was steady, yes, but he warned him the Jedi would never understand. They feared what they could not control. They would destroy anyone who sought such knowledge. Anakin left in turmoil, the Chancellor's words turning in his mind like a wheel without end. Obi-Wan was gone, sent to the Outer Rim. There was no one to steady him. The Council, sensing something, gave him a place on their ranks, not as a master, but as a spy. They ordered him to watch Palpatine, to betray the man who had trusted him. It felt like treachery. Days later, he returned to the Chancellor's chambers, the war raging beyond Coruscant's walls. Palpatine pressed the truth further. There was no time for hesitation. Padme's fate was sealed unless he acted. Only the dark side could break the chains of death. Only together could they unlock it. Anakin's voice faltered. He needed time. Then came the call. Mace Windu had discovered the truth. He and a team of Jedi were moving against the Chancellor. The arrest would happen that night. Anakin's choice could no longer wait. He raced to the Chancellor's office. The battle had already begun. Palpatine's crimson blade hissed through the air, cutting down Jedi one by one. Windu stood alone, saber locked against the Sith Lords. Sparks lit the room like fireflies in a storm. Anakin froze at the threshold, every breath heavy. Windu shouted for him to stay back, to see the truth with his own eyes. This was a Sith, nothing more. But Palpatine's voice cut through the clash of blades, reaching him with surgical precision. You need me, only I can save her. The fight surged. Windu drove the Sith back toward the shattered window. Lightning tore from Palpatine's hands, flooding the chamber with its blinding glare. Windu deflected it, his blade bending the storm back onto its source. Palpatine cried out, his voice cracking under the strain. Windu's face hardened. He's too dangerous to be left alive. The words struck deeper than any weapon. Anakin heard not justice, but loss. The loss of the one chance to keep Padman from the fate the Force had shown him. His mind screamed, with the choice, but his body moved before thought could catch it. His saber cut through the air. Windu's eyes widened. The blade pierced his guard, his stance breaking. Palpatine struck, lightning surging into Windu's body. The Jedi's form twisted, then vanished into the city's abyss. The room fell silent, but for the sound of Anakin's breath, his saber dimmed. Palpatine rose slowly, the weakness gone. From his voice, his presence now a tidal wave. Now, he said, you are mine. Anakin did not flinch. He did not look away. His knees bent, his head bowed. The words were hollow, but the oath was real. I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her. The Sith Lord smiled, naming him Darth Vader. He spoke of a new empire to replace the decaying Republic, of a purge to wipe the Jedi from existence. Anakin did not argue. The war drums in his mind had been replaced by a single sound, the echo of Windu's last cry and the faint, impossible hope that Pab could yet be spared. They left the chamber together, the city below burning in places unseen. The night was not yet finished, but the Jedi Order was already dying. In the silence between their footsteps, Anakin felt the truth he would not name. Whatever path he had once walked was gone. The Force had closed it behind him. Chapter 8. Nightfall at the Temple. The night fell heavy over Coruscant, though the city world never truly slept. From the Senate District, the lights of endless towers burned bright against the dark, a testament to the Republic's grandeur and its illusion of permanence. But across the city's skyline, a new fire began to bloom, sharp and violent against the orderly glow. The Jedi Temple was burning. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the iron stench of scorched metal and flesh. Marble corridors, once silent, halls of study and meditation, now rang with the clash of ignited lightsabers, the rattle of blaster fire, and the screams of the dying. Holocrons lay shattered in the archives, knowledge scattered like broken glass. Tapestries depicting centuries of Jedi history hung in tatters. Scorched by stray bolts, at the head of the slaughter came a figure robed in black, Anakin Skywalker, though that name was already dying within him. The man was being consumed by something greater and darker, forged in fire and oath. Every step forward was another step away from the Jedi he had been. His blade moved with terrifying certainty, cutting down masters and Padawans alike. Master Skywalker, a young voice called from the doorway of the training hall. It was a boy, no older than 10, standing with the other younglings who had gathered in confusion, fear in their wide eyes. There are too many of them. What are we going to do? Anakin's face was unreadable, his expression cold under the flickering light. The blue glow of his saber cast shadows on the wall as he stepped forward. For a brief heartbeat there was silence. Then the hum of the blade shifted, the air hissed, and screams filled the room. In the higher spires of the temple, Jedi Masters fought desperately to hold back the tide. Clones in white armor advanced with precision, their once loyal blasters turned upon those they had served. The words of Palpatine's command, "Execute Order 66, had spread like poison through the galaxy. On distant battlefields, Jedi generals fell one by one, shot in the back by soldiers they had led for years. Shock T, her muntrals singed from near misses, fought her way toward the temple's main entrance. She knew it was hopeless. The clones were endless, and the shadow at their head was more dangerous than all of them combined. She had heard whispers that Anakin Skywalker had turned, that he had bent his knee to the very Sith they had hunted for centuries. Elsewhere in the galaxy, betrayal unfolded like a synchronized dance. On Felucia, Aayla Secura fell under a sudden hail of blaster fire, not even given the chance to ignite her blade. On Kashyyyk, Yoda felt the wave of death ripple through the Force, his small frame bending under the weight of it. He dropped the clone troopers with a swift stroke and vanished into the green shadows in the temple. The Grand Master's quarters stood silent and dark. Yoda was already gone, slipping into exile before the net could close around him. Obi-Wan Kenobi, summoned away from Utapau by the tremors in the Force, would return too late. Back in the main hall, the temple guards, stoic in their yellow masks, formed a line. Their double-bladed pikes clashed with Anakin's saber in a furious storm of sparks. He broke through them like a tidal wave through driftwood. To those who met his eyes, there was no recognition, No mercy, only the cold, relentless will of the Sith above. The council chamber was already in flames, its tall windows shattered outward, the wind howling through. Once a place where wisdom guided the Republic's fate, it was now a tomb. The seats stood empty, some scorched, others tipped over as if in flight. The last holdouts, a cluster of Padawans and knights, fought at the archive's entrance. "Hold them," one shouted, his voice ragged. But the black figure came again, moving with the speed of lightning and the precision of a scalpel. In moments, it was over. The temple's beacon, the signal that had always called Jedi home, now pulsed with a different message. Under Anakin's command, it broadcast an all-clear to lure surviving Jedi back into the trap. The galaxy's guardians were being erased, and their sanctuary was becoming their grave. By dawn, the fires had not yet burned out. The temple stood as a blackened ruin against the sky, its spires cracked and bleeding smoke. Inside, the dead lay where they had fallen, masters, Padawans, children, their sabers dark, somewhere deep within the temple's heart. Among the ashes, the last echoes of the Jedi Order faded into silence, and in the stillness, Darth Vader, for that was his name, now turned from the carnage without looking back. The Republic was dead. The Empire's shadow had risen. Chapter 9, The Womb of Mustafar. Volcanic world of Mustafar, burned beneath a black and crimson sky. Rivers of molten rock crawled through jagged canyons, their glow staining the horizon like open wounds. The air was thick with ash and the distant groan of the planet itself, a place of violence given form. It was here, in this crucible of fire, that the last act of the Clone Wars would be written. The separatist leaders waited within their fortress, unaware that their war had already been lost. They had gathered in fear, whispering of the Chancellor's tightening grip, of General Grievous's death, and of the strange silence from their fleets. Their droid guards clanked restlessly, scanning the shadows. Then the shadows moved. The doors hissed open, and a tall figure stepped into the chamber. Cloaked in black lightsaber, ignited in a wash of blue, his presence filled the room, like the approach of a storm. Darth Vader, newly christened, still carrying the face of Anakin Skywalker, but stripped of everything that had made him a Jedi, entered without a word. "Lord Vader," Newt Gunray began, his voice trembling. The war the rest was, drowned in the hum of a saber cutting through flesh and armor. Panic broke among the separatists. Some tried to flee, others pleaded, but the black figure moved with mechanical precision, cutting them down one after another. The Neimoidians, the banking clan, the Techno-Union, all fell, their cries echoing against the cold stone walls. By the time the last voice was silenced, the fortress stank of ozone and burnt flesh. Vader deactivated his blade, standing amidst the bodies of those who had once commanded the galaxy's greatest army. The war was over, its leaders dead by his hand. He stepped to the balcony, gazing out over the molten rivers below. The heat washed over him, fierce and consuming, as if the planet itself approved of his work. In the distance, the separatist droid armies powered down in unison, their control signals severed. The galaxy was now in the Emperor's grasp, but peace was an illusion, and vengeance was coming. Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived on Mustafar, with the weight of the Temple's massacre still heavy on his soul. He had seen the holorecordings, Anakin cutting down children, striking down his own kin in the Order, and yet, even now, a part of him hoped there was some mistake, that the boy he had trained was still in there, buried beneath the rage. On the landing platform, Padme Amidala emerged from her ship before Obi-Wan could stop her. She ran to Anakin, tears streaking her face. "Anakin," she pleaded, "what have you done? I've brought peace, freedom, justice, and security." "To my new empire," he answered, the words as cold as the molten world was hot. "Your new empire," she whispered, horror dawning. "Don't you see, Pad? We don't have to hide anymore. We can rule together. I can protect you." Her tears fell faster. "Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow." Behind her, Obi-Wan stepped into view. Anakin's expression twisted instantly into fury. "You brought him here to kill me," he roared, and the air seemed to tighten. "No," Anakin Pod began, but her voice cut off in a gasp as an invisible hand gripped her throat. She collapsed, unconscious, as Obi-Wan rushed forward. "Let her go." Obi-Wan's voice cracked. Like a whip, Anakin released her and turned to face his former master. There was no hesitation now, no plea for understanding. The bond that had once been stronger than blood was ashes. "You turned her against me," Anakin spat. "You have done that yourself," Obi-Wan replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with sorrow. "You have allowed this Dark Lord to twist your mind until now. Until now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy." Anakin's lips curled into something between a snarl and a smile. "Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side as you do." The duel began in a blur of light and sound. Blue blades clashed, sparks flying, the heat of Mustafar wrapping around them like a living thing. They fought through the control room, their sabers slicing through consoles and walls, the entire facility groaning as it took damage. Each strike was not just an attack, but a conversation, years of trust, brotherhood, and love breaking apart. With every blow, they battled out onto the platform, then onto the narrow service arms that extended over the lava rivers. The air was so hot it blurred their vision, sweat and ash mingling on their faces. Finally, Obi-Wan found higher ground. "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." "You underestimate my power," Anakin roared, leaping, and in a single, devastating motion, Obi-Wan's blade struck. Severing both legs and his remaining arm, Anakin hit the black rock near the lava's edge, screaming as the heat ignited his clothing. Flames consumed him as he writhed, his eyes blazing with hate. "I hate you," he howled, his voice raw. Obi-1 stood frozen, tears cutting through the soot on his face. "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." He turned away, unable to end his life, and left him there, broken, burning, and screaming his name into the molten wind. From the sky a shuttle descended. Darth Sidious stepped out, his face a mask of triumph. He knelt beside the charred ruin of his new apprentice. "Lord Vader," he said softly, almost tenderly, "rise." But the broken figure could not rise, not yet. That would come soon. Enough. Chapter 10. The Iron Breath Pain. Nothing else existed at first, only the raw, burning agony that consumed every nerve and every thought. It was the pain of fire, of flesh peeled away, of lungs filled with molten air. It was the pain of being alive when every instinct screamed to let go. Somewhere in the haze, voices murmured, not gentle voices, cold, precise, and utterly untroubled by the suffering they observed. Machines hummed, servos clicked, and the faint echo of footsteps moved around him. When sight returned, it was not the sight of eyes. His real eyes, the blue eyes of Anakin Skywalker, had been burned and scarred beyond repair. Now, filtered vision fed into his mind through mechanical lenses, and every movement of his artificial lids felt alien, wrong. He lay on a cold slab in a chamber deep within the heart of Imperial Center, the city once called Coruscant. Above him, surgical droids hovered on spindly limbs, each tipped with tools that whined and hissed. They carved away what remained of ruined limbs, sealing nerve endings with cauterizing heat before attaching blackened durasteel. Sidious stood beside the table, watching the work with the calm satisfaction of a craftsman overseeing the forging of a masterpiece. "He will live," the Emperor said, not as a hope, but as a command. "Yes, my lord," the head surgeon droid replied, its vocabulator grating. "His body is irreparably damaged, but the enhancements will sustain him." The work continued for hours. Armor plates were locked into place around the ravaged torso. Servo motors slid into sockets where flesh had once been. A breathing apparatus was integrated into the chest cavity, its tubes snaking up toward a mask that still waited on a tray nearby. The final act of the reconstruction was as much ritual as procedure. Sidious himself took the black mask in his hands. It was smooth and expressionless, its design cruel in its simplicity, the face of a nightmare. The droids lowered it over the scarred head, locking it into the armored gorget that encased the neck. There was a hiss as the seal engaged, the sound sharp and final. A moment of silence followed. Then the breath began. Heishkeshki, a slow mechanical inhale, followed by an equally mechanical exhale. The sound was inhuman, a rhythm of life stripped of all softness, all fragility. Sidious stepped closer, his voice low and serpentine. "Lord Vader, can you hear me?" The figure on the table stirred. His movements were awkward, the servos. Worry, but strength was there. Unnatural strength, yes. "My master," the voice that came from the mask was deep, resonant, and utterly devoid of the young man's warmth. It was not the voice of Anakin Skywalker. Sidious allowed himself a thin smile rise. Vader pushed himself upright, each motion deliberate, testing the new weight of his armor. The world through the visor was tinted, narrowed, and filled with targeting data. Every sound came filtered through the helmet's receptors, the constant, mechanical breath underscoring it all. "The Separatists are no more," Sidious continued. "The Jedi are scattered, leaderless. The galaxy is ours." For a moment, Vader said nothing. His mind was a storm of rage, grief, and the faint, unbearable memory of a woman's face, Podum. The name tried to surface, but Sidious cut through it with a question like a knife. "Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?" Vader's voice was sharper now, the words forced through the mechanical rasp. Sidious tilted his head, feigning sorrow. "It seems, in your anger, you killed her." The world stopped. Vader froze as the words pierced deeper than any blade. I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt her." Sidious's smile was almost invisible beneath his hood. "Appears you did." The sound that erupted from Vader was not human. It was a roar, amplified and distorted by the helmet's speakers, shaking the chamber walls. He staggered forward, chained by grief and fury, the restraints of his new body making the emotion even more suffocating. The force surged violently from him, crushing equipment and shattering glass. Sidious merely stepped back, watching with satisfaction as his apprentice drowned in his own despair. When the outburst faded, Vader stood trembling, fists clenched. Whatever humanity had survived, Mustafar burned away in that moment. The man who had loved, dreamed, and laughed was gone. What remained was a weapon, a creature of metal and fury. Sidious placed a hand on the armored shoulder, as one might do with a loyal hound. Together, Lord Vader, we shall bring order to the galaxy. Vader bowed his head. Yes, my master. From that day forward, the galaxy learned a new sound to fear the iron breath that preceded conquest. The slow mechanical rhythm that signaled death's arrival. Anakin Skywalker was no more. Darth Vader had been born. Chapter 11, Years of Iron and Shadow. The galaxy adjusted quickly to its new master. The banners of the Republic were torn down, replaced with the stark sigil of the Empire, a cold black and white emblem that seemed to stare back at you. The Senate remained for now, but its voice was hollow. The true power resided in the Emperor's throne room, where every decision was carved in shadow, and in that shadow there was a fist clad in black armor, crowned with a mask, breathing. In the iron rhythm of inevitability, Darth Vader, he became the Emperor's will made flesh, or what remained of flesh. When Sidious required fear, Vader brought it. When Sidious required silence, Vader imposed it. His very presence could smother resistance before it was born. The Jedi Purge did not end with the fall of the Temple. The Emperor had given Vader a task: hunt them, leave none. And Vader obeyed with unrelenting precision. Across the galaxy, scattered Jedi survivors found themselves stalked by whispers in the Force. On the moon of Arbra, Master Syalan was sensed him days before he arrived. She fled into the forests, masking her trail, but the sound of mechanical breathing followed her through the mist. When the moment came, her green blade flared to life, only to be extinguished in 2 strikes. On Corellia, Jedi Knight Roan, Shin barricaded himself inside the ruins of an old temple. He told himself he was ready for death, but when Vader stepped into the dark hall, Shine's courage faltered. The duel was brief. The corpse remained as a warning to others who might think to resist. Entire archives of Jedi knowledge vanished into Imperial vaults. Holocrons were sealed away, some studied by Sidious, others destroyed entirely. Vader himself crushed many beneath his boots. Knowledge of the Jedi was a fire he sought to extinguish completely, yet for all his power, there was a hollow space within him, like the empty chamber of a ruined temple. In the solitude of his meditation chamber, a black sphere that sealed him from the galaxy, Vader would remove his mask. The air burned in his scarred lungs, but the silence was worse. In the darkness behind closed lids, he dreamed. Sometimes he stood on Naboo's grassy hills, sunlight warm on his face, a woman's laughter carried by the breeze. Padma, always Padma. Her hand in his, her voice calling his name, not Vader, but Anakin. The dream would always turn to ash, the hills blackening, her face disappearing into fire. Sometimes he saw a boy and a girl, just children, faces he could not quite make, outrunning through the sands of Tatooine. He did not know why these visions lingered. Sidious had told him his bloodline was ended, that Padme had died with their unborn child, and yet, in the quiet recesses of his mind, he felt something in the Force, a faint echo that defied the Emperor's words. He buried these thoughts under layers of obedience. Doubt was a crack in the armor, and cracks could kill. Years passed, and the galaxy bent beneath Imperial law. Star destroyers became the new horizon above every major world. The Wookiees of Kashyyyk were enslaved, their forests stripped. Entire systems were mined until nothing remained but rock and slag. The Empire's fist closed tighter, and hope seemed a relic of the past. But seeds of rebellion do not need light to grow, only pressure. Small cells of resistance formed in hidden corners of the outer rim. The Emperor dismissed them as pests. Vader, however, took no chances. He crushed these sparks with ruthless speed, burning villages, executing leaders, ensuring that the cost of defiance was unbearable. Still, even Vader could not be everywhere, and each time he destroyed one cell, another seemed to rise in its place. The galaxy was shifting, imperceptibly at first, but the current was there, a tide. The Emperor could not fully see. Vader felt it, though he could not name it. A tremor in the Force, faint and far away, but growing stronger year by year. It was not the scattered remnants of the Jedi. Their light was almost gone. This was something new, something dangerous. When he reported this feeling to Sidious, the Emperor only smiled. The Force moves in many ways, my friend. All will be revealed in time. And so Vader returned to his work, the endless hunt, the unbroken breath, the weight of the galaxy's fear pressing down upon his armored shoulders. The years blurred into one another. The man called Anakin Skywalker faded further into myth, whispered about in Bakali cantinas as a Jedi who might have saved the galaxy, if only he had lived. But he had not. The black mask, the iron breath, and the crimson hand of the Emperor had erased him, or so the galaxy believed, deep inside, where no light reached. A name still lingered. Anakin. Chapter 12. The spark of rebellion. It began as whispers in the cantinas of the Outer Rim. Smugglers spoke of Imperial patrols vanishing without a trace. On backwater moons, miners told of entire garrisons that were ambushed and left stripped of weapons and armor. Refugees carried rumors between worlds. Stories of nameless fighters striking from the shadows, vanishing before the Empire could respond. Sidious called them criminals. Vader called them targets. But among the people, they were called something else. The rebellion. It was not yet an army, nor even a single unified cause. Scattered cells acted independently, connected only by shared rage and the desperate hope of freedom. Some fought to restore the Republic. Others fought simply to live without chains. Many died without even knowing the names of their allies. Still, the sparks grew. Bail Organa, Senator of Alderaan, played his part with careful precision. In the Senate, he appeared a loyal subject of the Emperor, his speeches veiled in careful neutrality. But in the hidden chambers of his palace, star charts were marked with red circles, Imperial supply lines, garrison worlds, and shipyards that could be sabotaged. Ships were bought and modified under false names. Weapons were smuggled in grain. Shipments, pilots and soldiers were quietly recruited. On Lothal, a small crew of insurgents began striking at Imperial depots, stealing crates of blasters, fuel, and food for those left starving under Imperial rule. Their victories were small but symbolic, a reminder that the Empire could be wounded. The Empire's greatest weapon was still in secret construction, the Death Star, orbiting above the prison world of despair. Its skeletal frame took shape under the labor of thousands of slaves. In the Emperor's vision, it would be the ultimate deterrent, not merely an army's worth of destruction, but the power to erase entire worlds in a single strike. The galaxy would not rebel if the cost of defiance was annihilation. But the Force had other designs, far from Coruscant's towers and the Empire's iron grip. There lay a desert world forgotten by most star charts, Tatooine. Its twin suns burned without mercy, bleaching the sands into an endless expanse of gold and white. Life here was hard, unremarkable, and often short. But it was on this backwater world that a boy dreamed of something greater. Luke Skywalker. He did not yet know his name carried weight in the Force, nor that his very existence was a secret guarded by the last Jedi. He knew only that he was tired of moisture farming, tired of the same horizon every day, and tired of feeling like he was meant for something he could not yet see. Sometimes, when the work was done and the suns dipped low, Luke would stand outside, looking at the sky. He imagined himself among the stars, piloting a starfighter, seeing worlds the Empire tried to keep hidden. He did not know that destiny was already moving toward him, carried on the same currents of the Force that had once shaped his father's. Life in the shadows of the galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi watched. From the shelter of a small hut in the Jundland wastes, he kept to himself, an old hermit to the locals. But his eyes were always turned toward the boy. It was not yet time to reveal the truth. Luke was not ready, and the galaxy was not ready for him. But Obi-Wan could feel the Force stirring, stronger now than in years past. Vader felt it too, though he could not name it. He sensed a presence in the Force, faint but growing. It was not the same as hunting Jedi. This was something unfamiliar, yet maddeningly familiar. It brushed against the edges of his awareness like a shadow in the mist. He reported it to the Emperor, who dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "The galaxy breeds many disturbances," Sidious said. "This one will reveal itself when the time is right. And when it does, you will crush it." But the spark had already caught. The rebellion grew bolder, linking their scattered forces into something more dangerous. Sabotage missions struck deeper into Imperial territory. Convoys vanished along hyperlanes once thought safe. The Empire answered with brutality, but each act of repression only fanned the flames. The galaxy was shifting, and on a lonely desert world, a boy who knew nothing of the Empire's fear, nothing of the rebellion's hope, stared at twin suns. Sinking into the horizon, his heart ached for something he could not name. Somewhere deep inside, the Force whispered to him, though he did not yet know how to listen. Chapter 13. The Boy Who Was His Son. The desert morning began like any other on Tatooine. The suns climbing over the dunes, heat bleeding into the air even before midday. Luke Skywalker moved quickly, checking the moisture vaporators before the twin lights grew too harsh. He thought about nothing more than getting his chores done so he could visit Tosh Station later. It was an ordinary day until it WASN single quotes. 2 news had spread through Anchorhead that a pair of droids had gone missing from a nearby homestead, a wandering astromech, and a Golden Protocol unit. Luke found them soon enough, but the smaller one, R2-D2, was persistent about delivering a message. That night, Luke watched the flickering hologram in his garage. A woman in white robes, regal even in desperation. "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." The message repeated in fragments, as if the droid itself were urging him to act. The name caught in Luke's mind, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Old Ben Kenobi, the hermit in the Jundland wastes, the one Uncle Owen had warned him about. The next day, chasing the droid into the desert, Luke found himself face to face with the man, cloaked, weathered eyes, sharp despite his years. Ben was more than the odd hermit the locals spoke of. He recognized the name Luke, spoke Skywalker, and for the first time in years, allowed himself to speak of the past. In Ben's hut, the story began to unfold. The Jedi Knights, the Clone Wars, the betrayal that destroyed the Order. Luke listened, torn between awe and disbelief. Then Ben produced an object wrapped in cloth, its weight oddly significant for something so small. "This was your father's lightsaber," Ben said, placing it in Luke's hands. The hilt was cold at first, then warmer as his fingers curled around it. When Luke ignited the blade, a brilliant blue beam erupted with a hiss, filling the small room with its hum. For a heartbeat, the boy felt something, a pull, a connection he could not explain. Ben's voice grew quieter. "Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. He feared you might follow him on some idealistic crusade, as your father did." Luke glanced at the blade again. What happened to him? How did he die? Ben hesitated. "A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father." The words sank deep, though they did not yet carry their full truth. The boy in the desert had no idea that the man called Vader was the same blood that ran in his own veins. The conversation turned to the message, the plea from Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan. She had hidden the plans to a secret Imperial weapon inside R2-D2, and they had to reach Alderaan's leaders before it was too late. Ben asked Luke to come with him, to learn the ways of the Force and fight the Empire. Luke shook his head. "I can't. I've got work to do. I can't just leave Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru." Ben only nodded. "You must do what you feel is right, of course, but fate is rarely patient." Returning home, Luke found the homestead reduced to ash. The vaporators stood like broken bones, the walls charred black. His aunt and uncle lay where they had fallen, burned beyond recognition. The stormtroopers had come for the droids and left nothing alive. When Luke returned to Ben, there was no hesitation in his voice. "There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father." And so, without realizing it, the son of Anakin Skywalker stepped onto the path that would lead him directly into his father's shadow. The rebellion gained a new recruit, and the Force tightened the weave of its prophecy. Far across the galaxy, aboard an Imperial Star Destroyer, Darth Vader reviewed reports of stolen Death Star plans. There was nothing yet to suggest a boy from Tatooine would be involved. No hint of the blood bond between hunter and quarry. But in the currents of the Force, there was a faint ripple, the kind a predator feels when prey enters the field. Chapter 14. The duel on Bespin City floated among clouds like a jewel adrift in the sky. Beneath its gleaming domes, the corridors of Cloud City were silent but tense, as if the very air knew it was about to hold a reckoning. Luke Skywalker stepped off the lift into the carbon-freezing chamber, lightsaber in hand, the orange glow of the room reflecting off his determined face. The air was heavy, steam rising from vents in the floor. He could feel it, that cold, suffocating presence. Darth Vader was waiting. The Dark Lord stood at the far side of the platform, motionless, his black armor gleaming under the chamber lights. The mechanical breathing filled the silence like a drumbeat of inevitability. "The Force is with you." "Young Skywalker," Vader's voice rumbled, metallic yet carrying an edge of familiarity. "But you are not a Jedi yet." Luke didn't wait for more words. He ignited his saber, the blue blade flaring to life with a hiss, and charged. Vader's crimson blade met it in a flash, the clash of light and sound echoing through the chamber. Sparks danced in the air as each strike tested the other's strength. It was not a duel between equals. Vader was testing him, probing his defenses, forcing him to react. Luke's strikes were quick, driven by adrenaline and anger, but Vader's were measured, deliberate, the motions of a master who could end it at any moment, yet chose not to. They circled the freezing pit, the floor grating beneath their boots. Steam hissed and billowed, casting their shadows high against the walls. Each swing of Vader's blade was heavy, forcing Luke backward, step by step, toward the edge. "You have learned much, young one," Vader said, locking blades and pressing forward. "You have controlled your fear. Now release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me." Luke gritted his teeth. "I'll never join you." He broke the lock, striking fast, forcing Vader back for the first time. The clang of sabers rang sharp in the enclosed chamber. But Vader was done holding back. A sudden surge of power came through his strikes. One blow knocked Luke's saber from guard. Another sent him sprawling onto the metal floor. Before Vader could land the finishing strike, Luke rolled aside and leaped onto a platform above, desperate to gain ground. Vader followed without hurry. His breathing never changed pace. The duels spilled out into the corridors of Cloud City, their blades flashing in narrow walkways against the hum of machinery. Vader struck with relentless precision, each blow carrying enough force to shatter bone if it connected. Luke barely kept up, sweat streaming down his face. In a desperate moment, Vader used the Force, hurling debris at the boy, machinery, crates, even entire panels torn from the walls. Luke was battered backward until a heavy object slammed him through a window, shattering glass into the abyss. They ended on a narrow bridge, the wind screaming around them, lightning flashing in the clouds below. Luke's arm throbbed from the strain, his breaths ragged. Vader pressed forward, each strike driving him closer to the edge. And then, in one swift motion, the crimson blade swept down. Pain exploded through Luke's right arm as the lightsaber sliced clean through the wrist. His weapon tumbled into the void below. Luke staggered back, clutching the stump, his body shaking. Vader advanced, but his voice changed. There was no triumph in it, only an unshakable gravity. "There is no escape," Vader said. "Don't make me destroy you." Luke glared through the pain. "You killed my father." For a long moment, only the wind answered. Then Vader spoke, his voice low and final. "No, I am your father." The words struck harder than any blade. Luke's knees weakened, his mind refusing to accept them. The man who had hunted and killed the Jedi, the man who had tortured his friends, was his own blood. "It's not true," Luke gasped. "That's impossible." "Search your feelings," Vader said, his tone almost pleading. "You know it to be true." Luke's breath came fast, the storm around them roaring. Vader extended a hand. "Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. We can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy." Luke looked at the outstretched hand, the offer wrapped in power, control, and the shadow of destiny, and he chose, without another word. He stepped backward off the platform. The wind tore at him as he fell into the abyss, choosing the unknown over the embrace of the dark side. Above, Vader stood at the edge, the storm reflecting in his mask. He had not killed the boy, he had revealed the truth, but the choice that would be Luke's chapter. 15. The Emperor's Snare, the cold corridors of the Death Star's second generation hummed with the pulse of machinery and the echo of destiny. Beyond its durasteel walls lay the black ocean of space, studded with burning stars and the crawling fleets of war. The final confrontation was coming, not in the clash of armies, but in the collision of wills. Luke Skywalker had not come here as a warrior, but as a gambler. His surrender to the Empire was not weakness. It was the only card he had left to play. He had seen what blasters could not kill, and what fleets could not stop. The shadow of Darth Vader, and somewhere within that shadow, hidden under decades of darkness, lay the faint ember of the man called Anakin Skywalker. Luke believed, or needed to believe, that ember could still burn. Vader's presence filled the docking bay like an eclipse. The hiss of the mask, the mechanical rhythm of the iron lungs, was not mere breathing. It was the tolling of a funeral bell. Luke's wrists were bound, but his spine was straight. The man in black studied him, and for a long moment neither spoke. Then Vader's voice broke the silence, deep, resonant, and cold. "So, you have accepted the truth." Luke met the blank eyes of the mask. "I have accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father." There was no twitch of the helmet, no human reaction, only the slow, deliberate pace of the breathing machine. "That name no longer has any meaning for me." Luke shook his head. "It is the name of your true self. You've only forgotten. I know there's still good in you." The words were dangerous, not because they were false, but because they were true. Deep within the fortress of metal and rage, something shifted, but the walls closed in again, and Vader's voice returned, as if speaking through a storm. "It is too late for me, son." The word hung in the air, son. Vader turned, leading Luke through the corridors, past the polished ranks of stormtroopers. No one dared speak. The Emperor had summoned them to the throne room. The air in that chamber was thick, as if reality itself bent under the weight of its occupant. Emperor Palpatine sat upon his black throne like a spider at the center of a vast, invisible web. His eyes burned with a yellow hunger that pierced flesh and bone alike. The moment Luke stepped into his gaze, he felt it. The pull, subtle at first, then insistent, like the tide pulling him toward a jagged shore. "Welcome, young Skywalker." The Emperor's voice was silk over steel. "I have been expecting you." Luke said nothing. His eyes flickered to Vader, but his father stood at the edge of the shadows, silent, unreadable. Palpatine's fingers tapped the arm of his throne. "You no longer require those." With a gesture, Luke's binders fell away. The act was not kindness, it was bait. The Emperor's mind slithered into Luke's thoughts, brushing against his anger, his fear, his longing for justice. "Your friends, up there, are walking into a trap. It is your fault they will be destroyed." A holoscreen bloomed in the air, the rebel fleet dropping out of hyperspace, falling straight into the teeth of the Imperial Armada. Luke's heart lurched. He could feel their hope turn to panic. The Emperor's smile deepened, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Strike me down with all your hatred, and your journey toward the dark side will be complete." The lightsaber on the arm of the throne gleamed, his father's weapon. Luke's pulse thundered. His hand twitched toward it just a little, and that was all the Emperor needed to see. "Yes, I can feel your anger." Palpatine leaned forward. "Give in to it. It is the only way to save your friends." The Force churned around them, a whirlpool of temptation and defiance. Luke reached, then stopped. His hand trembled. Vader's gaze turned to him, unreadable behind the mask, but Luke felt the tension radiating from him. It was as if the air between them was a thread, thin, fragile, yet unbroken. Palpatine saw it too. His smile faltered, just for a moment. He leaned back, but his eyes burned hotter. "You will not turn. Very well. Perhaps your father will watch you die." The snare was closing. Every breath, every word, every flicker of the Emperor's power was meant to push Luke one step closer to the edge, until there would be nowhere to stand but the dark side. In the shadow of that throne, Luke understood the truth. He was not here to win. He was here to risk everything, even his own life, on the chance that somewhere, deep inside the monster before him, the man named Anakin Skywalker still listened, and in the quiet spaces of his mind, Vader heard him. Chapter 16. The Breaking of Chains. The throne room is an ocean of shadow, lit only by the cold gleam of the Death Star's vast windows. Beyond them, the battle rages. Rebel ships hurl themselves at the Imperial fleet, streaks of fire carving through the void. Inside, the storm is quieter, but far more deadly. Luke lies writhing on the ground, his body convulsing under the Emperor's barrage of force. Lightning, bolts of searing energy leap from Sidious's skeletal fingers, tearing screams from the young man's throat. The smell of burning flesh and ozone thickens the air. Every crackle of blue light etches agony into Luke's frame, and every second drags him closer to the edge of death. Darth Vader stands between them and the door, a sentinel of black steel and silence. His mechanical breath rasps in the darkness, steady but unreadable. He is the Emperor's enforcer, the unbreakable chain that binds the galaxy under tyranny. But that chain has begun to strain. Luke's voice, ragged and desperate, cuts through the thunder of the storm. "Father, please," the word strikes, deeper than the lightning ever could. Vader feels it not in his armor, but in the space where flesh once was, the hollow chamber that still remembers being Anakin Skywalker. The name he has buried trembles under the weight of the plea, does not relent. His face twists in cruel delight. "Your feeble skills are no match for the power of the dark side," he hisses. "You will die, just as your father did." The words hang in the air, deliberate, venomous. Vader knows what they are meant to do, to sever, not bind, to erase what Luke is reaching for. But Sidious has misjudged the wound he is probing. The Emperor sees a weapon. Vader feels a sun. The lightning grows brighter, and Luke's cries grow weaker. The boy's fingers claw uselessly at the floor, dragging against the smooth metal, seeking anything to anchor himself. He is seconds from the abyss. Vader watches, and in that silence, the Force speaks. Not in words, not in visions, but in a wave of memory. A boy on Tatooine looking at twin suns. A wife's laughter in the halls of Coruscant. The smell of burning on Mustafar. The sound of a lightsaber falling from his own hand. And now the sound of his son dying before him. The choice is no longer a calculation. It is not even thought. It is instinct, ancient and undeniable. With a roar that is half machine, half human, Vader moves. The Emperor has no time to turn before the black figure is upon him. The chain that bound Vader for decades shatters in the space of a heartbeat. Sidious's lightning turns wild as Vader seizes him, bolts tearing into armor and flesh alike. Pain floods through Vader's systems, alarms scream in his helmet. Servos spark, the smell of burning insulation mingling with his own scorched skin. But he does not let go. The Emperor shrieks, a sound that cuts like glass. His hands flail, his power lashing out in desperate arcs that scorch the walls. Yet Vader's grip only tightens. The throne room fills with the stench of ozone, the howl of rage, the hiss of overloaded circuits. Step by step, Vader drives forward, carrying Sidious toward the yawning reactor shaft. Lightning courses through him, his limbs judder. His vision fractures into static, but still he advances. The Dark Lord of the Sith, the man who was Anakin Skywalker, is burning from the inside out. With one final heave, Vader casts the Emperor into the abyss. Sidious's scream spirals into the endless depths, swallowed by the core's blinding light. The lightning stops. The room falls silent, save for the uneven, dying rasp of Vader's breath. Smoke rises from his armor. His limbs hang heavy, servos grinding weakly. Systems are failing. The suit that sustained him now chokes him, but there is no regret. The galaxy has been given a heartbeat of freedom. Luke has been given a future. And Anakin Skywalker has been given one last truth. Chains can be broken. Chapter 17. The last breath of Anakin. The throne room is silent, except for the faint crackle of scorched metal and the slow, uneven rasp of Vader's breath. The Emperor is gone. His scream still seems to echo in the hollow depths of the reactor shaft. But the victory is steeped in pain. Vader's massive frame sags against the rail for a moment. Sparks leap from severed cables in his armor. Every intake of air rattles like a failing machine. The lightning has burned through more than circuits. It has scorched flesh that was already fragile, already failing. Luke stirs on the floor, his body trembling as sensation returns to his limbs. He forces himself upright, vision still swimming, and sees the towering black figure slumped and smoking in the aftermath. Father, the word carries no accusation, no fear, only the raw weight of recognition. Vader turns slowly toward him. The black lenses of his mask reflect the boy's face, battered but alive. For years, the mask has been a wall, the voice inside filtered, distorted, inhuman. But in that moment, Luke feels something else radiating from it. Relief. He crosses the floor to his father, his steps unsteady but driven. "Let me help you," he says, sliding an arm under the heavy armor to brace him. Vader leans on him. But the weight is more than Luke expects. It is the weight of a man and a machine coming apart. They move together toward the elevator, each step echoing in the vast chamber. But halfway there, Vader stops. "Luke," the mechanical voice says, softer now, each syllable a strain. "Help me take this mask off." Luke freezes. "But you'll die," he whispers. "Nothing can stop that now." There is no fear in Vader's tone, no hesitation. Just, for once, let me look on you with my own eyes. The words pierce Luke's heart. His hands tremble as they reach for the locks at the sides of the helmet. With a soft hiss of released pressure, the mask comes free. The dome lifts away. Then, at last, the face beneath is revealed. Anakin Skywalker's skin is pale, almost translucent, marked with the scars of fire and decades of survival inside the suit. His eyes, tired, bloodshot, but unmistakably human, meet Luke's. For a moment, father and son simply look at each other. No masks, no lies. Luke's breath catches. This is the man he had fought, hated, and finally found. This is the man who once was a boy on Tatooine, dreaming of the stars. "Now go, my son," Anakin murmurs. "Leave me." Luke shakes his head fiercely. "I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you." "You already have," Anakin says, a faint smile pulling at his lips. "You were right. About me. Tell your sister you were right." His voice falters. His eyes remain locked on Luke's as the strength drains from him. There is no bitterness now, no darkness, only peace and a deep, aching pride. Luke feels the life ebbing away and clutches his father's hand. "I won't leave you," he says again, but softer this time. It's no longer a promise of rescue, but of presence, that Anakin will not die alone. The mechanical breath stops. The last spark in Anakin's eyes fades. The hand in Luke's grasp falls limp. For a long moment, Luke does not move. The battle outside, the chaos of the crumbling empire, all of it feels impossibly far away. He lays the mask gently beside the body, the black lenses staring sightless into the void. The prophecy is fulfilled. The Sith are destroyed. The Force is in balance. But the prophecy did not speak of the cost, the price of redemption paid in full by the man who had been both the galaxy's nightmare and its savior. Luke finally rises, his jaw set. There is still a war to end, still lives to save, but a part of him will always remain in this throne room, beside the man who, in his final act, was not Darth Vader, but Anakin Skywalker. Chapter 18, Echoes in the Force, the stars above Endor are alive with fire. Fragments of the Death Star burn their way across the sky, streaking like falling comets toward the green moon below. Among them drifts the Imperial throne room, now nothing more than twisted wreckage. Silent and airless, within the rebel camp, the night is alive with celebration. Drums pound, voices rise, laughter and song mingle with the crackle of campfires. Ewoks dance in circles, their shadows leaping on the trunks of ancient trees. Around them, soldiers embrace. Old friends clasp hands. The war, or at least this war, is over. But Luke Skywalker stands apart from it all. The pyre is ready. It is built from tall, dry logs, stacked in a careful pyramid, each one chosen with reverence. At its center lies the body of his father. Vader's armor is intact, the mask replaced, not to hide his face, but to honor the symbol, the myth he once embodied. Luke knows the galaxy will remember the mask more than the man, and perhaps that is as it should be. A torch flares to life. In Luke's hand, he hesitates for a heartbeat, the flame trembling. Then he lowers it to the wood. The fire catches quickly, climbing upward in waves of orange and gold. Heat washes over him as the pyre roars to life. He does not cry. The Jedi way teaches that. Death is not an end, but a transformation, and yet he feels the weight of finality. The boy who had once only dreamed of his father now stands in the ashes of that dream, and in the light of the truth it became, above the fire. Smoke rises into the night, curling and twisting toward the endless dark. For a moment Luke swears. He sees a shape within it, the outline of a man, young and strong, smiling. Then the wind takes it, far away in the quiet currents of the Force. A presence stirs. Anakin Skywalker walks again, but not in flesh. Here, in the luminous realm between life and death, there is no pain, no machine to keep his heart beating. The weight of years, of choices, is gone. He feels the Force flowing through him, endless and pure. He is not alone. Two figures stand. At his side, Obi-Wan Kenobi, robed in brown, his eyes warm with the forgiveness that once seemed impossible. And beside him, Yoda, ageless and serene, the embodiment of wisdom. Anakin meets Obi-Wan's gaze. No words pass between them at first. They are not needed. All that had been broken is now mended. The old wounds, the betrayals, the losses. Here they are nothing but shadows that cannot touch the present. Yoda nods to him, as if to say, "It is done." Anakin turns his attention outward. Through the veil of the Force, he sees the camp on Endor. He sees Luke, his son, standing alone at the pyre. Pride swells within him, not the pride of conquest or power, but of legacy. Luke could face the darkness and refused it. He had reached into the heart of the Sith Lord and found the man buried beneath. And in doing so, he had saved him. "Your father would be proud," Obi-Wan says softly. Anakin smiles. He is. They watch as Luke lifts his head, glancing toward the trees where the shadows shift unnaturally. There, just beyond the flicker of the fires, Anakin lets himself appear. His form shimmers, not solid, but clear enough for recognition. Young, strong, whole. Luke sees him and understands. The smile they share is the bridge between two lifetimes. It is farewell, but also a promise. This is not the end. Centuries will pass. The names will blur. Scholars will debate the details, twisting them into politics and poetry. Some will say Vader was a monster destroyed by a Jedi. Others will whisper that he was a fallen hero, redeemed in his final breath. Holocrons will record the tale in a dozen voices. On worlds far from Coruscant, elders will tell children the story of the man who carried the shadow of the Sith, yet died in the light. The details will shift with each retelling, but the core will remain. That even in the deepest night, there can be dawn. That no one is beyond return. That the chain of darkness can be broken, but only at great cost, in the hidden places of the galaxy. In the meditations of the Jedi yet to come, the name Anakin Skywalker will drift like a half-remembered melody. Sometimes it will be spoken, with awe, sometimes with caution, but always with weight, and in the quiet spaces between stars. The Force itself will carry his echo. The ripple of a life that fell into shadow rose again and vanished into light.